Greetings, my name is Blaze, and today I wanted to talk about amulets and talismans, and a little bit about how you would enchant or load one of them. Now, obviously, it depends on the tradition that you're practicing, and folks will wear different types of symbols or tattoos or jewelry for different reasons and different purposes. One of the purposes is, of course, protection, not only for yourself, but for those that are your loved ones, friends, family. Now, when it comes to the difference between them, it's more of a tradition thing or how you choose to use it. Some folks will not use either term of amulet or talisman. Typically, the difference, as I understand it, is a talisman is an object that stores power and energy. So it's typically to enhance or be a reservoir of energy for you to tap into. Whereas an amulet is a protective item, something that just will give protection and help properties to ward off things, negativity, ill will, etc., just by the nature of the object itself. The vast array of different items that can be amulets and talismans is great. I'm only going to focus right now on some base stuff, such as a few necklaces that I have, and talk about rings. So one of the things that I wanted, of course, mention is tattooing. One of the things that some folks will do is tattoo different symbols onto their skin for the purposes of protection or, again, power enhancement. In this particular situation, this is what's referred to as a triskele or a triskel. It has to do with the Irish Celtic Druid tradition. There are other tattoos that you can get, of course, in different colors and variations. You can get specialized elements that you put into the ink itself. Obviously, you want to make sure that it's safe to put into your skin, and you probably want to have it tattooed by a professional. You can at least enchant the ink and load that with energy or vibrations if you wanted to. And again, just do some research on what's safe. Don't just throw anything randomly into a tattoo ink. Sometimes the symbol itself is enough. In this case, it was just normal tattoo ink, nothing special. It's just the symbol itself is the reason that I'm personally had it added to my hand. Now then, of course, you have stuff like rings. Now, I'm not a big ring person. Do have this ring, which I always thought was kind of cool. So this could be an example of something that you could use for focusing or using as a foci instead of not necessarily just as a talisman, but what I mean by a foci or focus is something to direct your energy through. For example, using a wand or an athame would be a similar situation of trying to focus your energy or vibrations through it. This too could work as, clenching your fist and focusing through. Kind of similar to how I guess you would see in comic books with like Green Lantern's ring as an example. And I know that's a fictitious example, but we're talking about energy vibration. So it's not something that you're going to see, it's something you're going to feel and sense. So if you want a visual representation, might as well use comics and media. I mean, after all, where do you think a lot of the inspirations for comics and different type of fiction comes from? So that's obviously one thing as well. There's also the wedding band itself. So the wedding band is, of course, a symbol of you being with someone else, whether, you had a hand fasting or a marriage, a wedding, of whatever the case may be. You're obviously wear this as a representation of your commitment to that other individual and to show others that you're taken. Now, depending on the tradition, again, depends on where you wear it. There are actually some traditions that will wear it on their right ring finger. Some traditions will wear it on the left ring finger. Sometimes you'll see like a clawdall. A clawdall is like, it's two hands holding a heart with a crown, and folks will actually wear it with the crown facing one direction, showing that, the crown is away from my finger, showing that my heart's taken, or towards them, showing that it's open. The ring obviously is not something that all people do or all traditions do. It just depends on what your particular path is. So with this is white gold. Now typically you will see gold associated with the wedding band, and there's a few reasons for that. Obviously the first reason is a ring is circular, it's infinite, it's eternity, it's eternal. So you're talking about that eternal binding and being with that person. Then of course gold itself, there's also the material that items are made out of for their purposes. So in this case, it would almost be a situation like an amulet. Your heart's now protected by your significant other, in my case, my wife. The idea here is that gold will block or inhibit the flow of energy. So the idea is a gold band is an eternal band along the ring finger. So to say, like, hey, my love in essence is taken, protected type of a situation, is one way of looking at why folks wear wedding bands. Now, there's also necklaces. Now, I'm going to show a few of the ones that I have. I have a few more, but these are some of the ones that I have handy. Obviously, I wear this one quite often. This one is known as Mjolnir. And Mjolnir is a symbol that is more of an amulet in and of itself. It's just a protection by the pure nature of being Mjolnir. This, of course, is Doctor Strange from the MCU. So this one is more of a decorative piece. So whether or not there's something associated with this, you could load it and enchant it and use it as a talisman if you would want to use a symbol. The thing is that to keep in mind, when it comes to things like comic books, fantasy, or fiction, it doesn't really matter the origin of objects. What matters most is what they mean to you. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking a comic book symbol or another symbol from fantasy and enchanting that and using that as a talisman. And as I'd mentioned earlier, like the Green Lantern ring, if you had a Green Lantern ring, you could do the same thing. I actually have plastic ones, but I don't think plastic is a good choice on material. But again, it's personal preference. Here is one made out of wood. This is made out of pine. I handcrafted this. This is another Mjolnir. Then you have the classic pentagram or pentacle, depending on how you want to call it. And then you have here the Elven Star, which is a 7-pointed star. Stands for the 7 different realms of the fairy, or the fae. And then, as you saw on my hand, is a tattoo, again, a Triskele or a Triskel, which is a Celtic Druid Irish symbol. And like I said, those are just some examples. Now you'll notice here, these are actually on nylon cords. Now the cool thing about these is these are one size fits all. So these are 2 slip knots. And what you essentially do is you can change the length of your necklace just by sliding the 2 slip knots. It's the same way this one is. So if you want to wear it higher, you find one of the slip knots here and just slide it. And then you pull it on the other side to even it out. And then you'll see that it's up higher on your neck. And you can adjust that. And it's also real easy to take off because then you just slide them as far as possible. Now it's nice and big and it fits right over your head. So I've always personally liked doing that. If you ever were interested in doing that for one of your necklaces, at least, obviously this is implied all different types of wearables. But if you get like a nylon cord spool and you cut it real long, make it excessively long, and then you would take the tips and you would tie a slip knot there, and then on the other side you would take, so you would have a slip knot on that side, and then the other side, which would be cut, you'd have a slip knot there. And it's literally, when I say a slip knot, it's literally, you would loop it around one time like this, you would feed this through, and then you would just pull it like that, and then that's the slip knot because it can slide up and down on that cord. And like I said, this big spool of nylon, it wasn't very expensive. You can get it Amazon or something like that. That's one way of wearing them as well. So when it comes to choosing what you want to wear, there are different reasons to choose what you choose. Commonly, you'll find things that are either made out of steel, pewter, or sterling silver are the most common ones. You might find some things that are gold, white gold, or some sort of different alloy. I feel like it's important to know the metal because I think the metal or wood or what it's made out of also plays a factor in its energy and its vibrations. Now I can create an entirely separate video that goes into a great detail as far as the different types of stones or metals or woods and why you would wear one versus the other for an amulet or a talisman. I have entire books. There's this one here, Love in the Earth, and it's a kaleidoscope of crystals, and that thing, I mean, it's a huge book. And then I've got another one with, I think it's from Scott Cunningham, and it's like crystals and gemstones. And there's quite a few, Stone Power, there's quite a few different books, so you can literally have entire volumes around this. So instead of making a video dedicated specifically to that, which I could do, and pick out a handful of ones that you might consider, I would recommend you do your research and consider what you are going to be wearing. I know, for example, there are some rings that are sold. You can have a silver ring with a gemstone in it, and then you have both of the properties of the gemstone and the metal. The idea here is that certain properties, just like certain herbs and candle colors, will have their own vibration. The idea here is you pick something that is associated with the vibration you're going for. So if you're going for a protection amulet, maybe get an amulet that is made out of a material that has natural vibrations which are attuned to actual protection. Same thing, if you're going to wear a talisman, let's say you're in the healing, find a stone or wood or material or both, have a metal with wood inlay or something like that, and maybe an actual stone in it, and all of them be vibrations that would associate or assist with healing, so you have a talisman that has natural properties from the material that they're made out of. The other thing, as I was mentioning, the symbols themselves sometimes, such as Mjolnir, is just by being Mjolnir, it is a protection thing that folks will wear. Now, obviously, if people wear different things and get tattoos for other purposes as well, to look cool or to associate themselves with a particular path or to kind of say and announce to others. I know pentagrams are really big, especially among those who practiced witchcraft, or a lot of Wiccans will wear them, and they'll wear them as a symbol of their dedication to their craft. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to wear something that is associated with your path. However, folks do wear them, and they wear them, and sometimes they'll use them dual purpose. The pentagram, for example, it is of itself an amulet. It is an actual protective symbol. And with this, it can also be used as a talisman because the symbolism behind it itself. Now, a lot of folks have this false misconception that the pentagram is evil. First and foremost, it's not evil. No symbol's inherently evil, in my opinion. Even if you look at the swastika, it's actually the same symbol. I believe the arms are bent in the opposite direction for the sun symbol, and there is actually a symbol in Hinduism that it's a heart chakra symbol that, again, looks very similar to it. As I understand it, the Nazis didn't just make up that symbol. They used the symbol that was out there and just applied it differently. And the same thing can be said for the pentagram. The pentagram or pentacle, typically the difference you'll see without the ring is typically referred to as a pentagram, but some folks will still call this a pentagram. But with the circle, it's usually referred to as a pentacle. But you'll notice here that first and foremost, there's 5 points, and the 5 points are equally shaped. When this symbol is used in a negative fashion, you'll typically see it like this. So you'll see the 2 points upward. But most of the folks, like you'll see here even on the string as it hangs, you'll have 1 point upward. Now, there are 2 different associations with this particular symbol in the way that it's worn, depending on the direction, very similar to a cross or crucifix. If someone was wearing a cross or crucifix versus an upside-down cross or crucifix, you don't necessarily say that the symbol is spiritual and positive all the time in one direction versus the other direction. There's a very, very big difference. Now, in the case of the pentagram or pentacle, the upside-down one does not instantly make it negative or evil. It's just typically, when I've seen it used for something of a negative fashion, it's typically used upside down. But there are magical reasons to have it upside down like that. So to begin with, this typically will stand for the 5 elements. You have that balance. You have it inside of a circle. They're all in harmony. So again, right there, you're talking about all of existence in harmony, in balance. There's your protection right there. And it actually wards off evil. The 5 points themselves will stand for the Western version of the 5 elements, because there are 5 elements associated with different paths. And in the East, for example, they have different elements that are 5 elements as well. I'll get into those separately. For right now, though, we're only going to talk about this, but we're talking about earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, or sometimes referred to as Akasha. When you have it like this, you talk about them all in harmony, and sometimes you can think about it as a person. So their 2 legs, their 2 arms, and their head in perfect balance and symmetry. Whereas here, you are talking about something that draws in power, where you are at the bottom and the 4 elements are drawn into you So it's an empowering symbol as well, not necessarily a negative one, but that's why it's usually associated with negativity, because it's about drawing in power. And usually when folks consider empowering and drawing in and everything for themselves, there's some negative innuendos inside of there. But spent too much time on that one symbol. The idea there is that the symbols in and of themselves are fine. Now, you can also take this in a different direction. You can take this as a way to just wear it. Again, we'll talk about the Triskele here, or the three selves, mind, body, and soul. Male, female, and the neutral. It is a symbol of three, the power of three. This is a very, very popular symbol. You'll see the spirals, again, spiraling, coiling up. And this is an empowering symbol more so than a protection symbol. Now, it is also a protection symbol. It is a balance symbol as well. Again, inside of a circle. On my hand, it's not. So that's also one association with that. But any of these, including the Doctor Strange symbol from the MCU, you can still charge even this symbol from the MCU, a very clear comic book symbol here that is not an actual anything. It is just literally a decoration from a movie. But, again, consider the material it's made out of, but what does it mean to you? What purpose does it have for you? And you can still load, enchant, and charge these. So, what is enchantment? Enchantment, the idea behind that is putting a vibrational energy or impression inside of an object. And you can do this through a vast array of things. You can have, for example, if you talk about in the Christian path, you have holy water. It's this oil and water, and you say a few words over it, and that water is now enchanted and blessed with the, I believe it's the power of Christ, God, whatever the case may be. I'm sorry, I'm not Christian, so I don't know the exact details, but that holy water is sacred just by this nature of its existence. And the words that you say over it empower that. And if you want to anoint, enchant, or empower something else, you can actually dip it into the holy water, and it will have those blessings upon it from that water. Kind of cool, right? Similar concept behind enchanting an object, whatever object that be. And sometimes you will take a known object which has properties and either add different properties to them or further enhance these further through enchantment or loading. When you are enchanting or loading, you can, again, say words over them associated with your deity, so it can be a deity blessing. If you don't believe in a deity, god, goddess, spirit, whatever the case may be, it can simply be an earth and elemental blessing. You can consider maybe going out in the backyard, digging a hole, burying it, and saying some words over it while it's buried in the ground, as an example. You could lay this on an altar if you use an altar in your ritual and ceremony. You could lay this on an altar cloth surrounded by candles. Have candles of a certain color with the vibration of the type of energy you're trying to load or enchant into this object. You can light them, say a few words there. You can consider burning incense or having herbs with it or sprinkling sacred or holy water onto it as well. The idea here is to raise vibrations and help to imbue them into it. You can hold it literally in the palm of your hand. Now, if you have a dominant hand, obviously you hold it in your dominant hand. If you don't believe in dominant hands, you can hold it neither, or you can cup it between the two. And then you sit and you close your eyes and you meditate or focus or flow energy down through your hand into that object, feeling it being imbued and radiating that vibration, that healing, that protection, that, whatever the case may be, whatever type of energy you want it to hold, and infusing it into the material itself and becoming part of it and one with it. So in the case of trying to take a protective symbol and putting this vibration of protection inside of it, now you're amplifying its natural abilities. Or let's say it is a protection symbol and you want to load it with just reservoir of vibrant and life energy or healing energy or whatever the case may be, then you can wear this when you're out and about to recharge, so to speak, just by wearing it. So that is just some associations with amulets and talismans and some ways that you can use them. I typically don't talk a lot about magical practice itself for the simple fact that, A, in many traditions, folks don't like to talk about it because once you do talk about it, then folks make fun of it. Then the other reason is you don't necessarily always want to talk about it due to the fact that there is no actual hardcore evidence. This is a belief that it is possible. You believe it is real, but there's not necessarily any factual information that can 100% be proven all the time I wore that. That's why I was protected and safe. It's no different than, you're driving in a car, you get in a wreck, you're completely unscathed. You can say all you want it had to do with your faith or what you're wearing, and there's no way of proving that. And that's not something you test. That's not something you want to prove and get into multiple wrecks to show that it's protective. So when it comes to stuff like this, you'll typically not hear me talk about it a lot, but it seems a lot of folks are interested, so I thought I would share my thoughts, share my opinions, share just a few spot ideas out there with you. There are many different ways to use amulets and talismans, or just different objects, necklaces, rings, tattoos, etc. There's many purposes, there's many ways, there's many paths. So hopefully your path is fruitful and you've learned something from this video. As always, remember to thumb up, like, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification for my next video that comes out when it does. And yeah, thanks for watching.